What's up, y'all? Spider-Man Brand New Day is coming out this week, so I feel like this is the best time to go back and look at the previous three Tom Holland Spider-Man movies of the Homecoming trilogy. And I am starting off with the first movie, Spider-Man Homecoming. It follows Peter as he struggles to balance life as an ordinary high school student while trying to prove to Tony Stark that he's ready to become an Avenger. Sony and Marvel got so much right with this movie that I honestly have very few complaints. So let's start with what I think is easily the biggest strength of Homecoming, and that is the perfect combination of Peter Parker and Spider-Man that we've ever gotten in a live action movie. I am a huge fan of Spider-Man. Been watching these movies ever since I was a little kid in theaters, watched the cartoons growing up in the 90s, and I've read several of the comics. So I am a huge fan of Spider-Man in general. I love the Sam Raimi movies. The Amazing Spider-Man movies are enjoyable in a weird way, especially number 2. The first one, not so much. But these Tom Holland movies it's interesting to go back and rewatch these movies because it feels like my opinions shift on these movies with every watch that I have with it. But Homecoming, Tom Holland was, I hate to say, and then the Tom Holland movies, I watch these movies with my sons, so it does have a special place in my heart. Now, the MCU in general, not a huge fan of anymore. I think there are more misses than there are hits, but I'm going to put that all aside and talk about Homecoming today. And Tom Holland, dare I say, was absolutely amazing in this role as not only Spider-Man, but Peter Parker as well. He was able to convince me of both roles, and that's something that I don't think that every Spider-Man movie has nailed. With the Tobey Maguire trilogy, I felt like he really nailed the Peter Parker aspect of it. And then on the flip side of things, we have Andrew Garfield, who I think nailed the Spider-Man aspect of it. So I think Tom Holland has done a great job of bringing both roles to the screen and being great in different ways with each of those roles. One of my biggest criticisms of that Sam Raimi trilogy, though, was always that Spider-Man himself didn't really feel enough like Spider-Man to me. The wisecracks are, to me, such an essential part of the character of Spider-Man, and Homecoming absolutely nails it in that regard. Holland's Spider-Man never shuts up during fights. He's constantly talking shit, making jokes, awkwardly rambling, and that's exactly who Spider-Man is supposed to be to me. And on top of that, I love that we finally got a Spider-Man who starts in high school, and we get to see him go through the years in high school. That's been one of the things that we have been missing sorely of the live action Spider-Man movies. And with him being in high school, we get a lot of that awkwardness of him being a teenager. Peter isn't just fighting criminals every day. He's worried about asking Liz to homecoming, or he's trying to impress her, dealing with anxiety, balancing school, and constantly feeling like what he does is not enough. Those are the things that almost everybody can relate to, and it made me invested in this Spider-Man character from beginning to end. And speaking of him being a teenager, I really liked Peter's relationship with Tony Stark throughout the entire movie. He desperately wants to be an Avenger. He thinks he's way more experienced than he actually is, and he's over there constantly bugging Happy, leaves Tony voicemail after voicemail. And how he acts is very immature and annoying, and that's exactly the point with this character. He's 15 years old. What do you expect? Even the scene after the ferry incident where Tony takes the suit away, legitimately one of the best scenes or best character moments for Peter in this movie. It's a harsh reality check that forces him to realize that the suit isn't what makes him Spider-Man. Now, I do think Marvel leaned a little too hard into that Iron Man crossover. I like the connective tissue for sure. It makes the MCU feel connected, and it makes sense that Tony would mentor Peter after Civil War. But I also think they spend a little too much time focusing on the Spider-Man tech of the character. Karen, we have the interrogation mode, instant kill mode, all those suit upgrades. A lot of those moments are genuinely hilarious. This is definitely the funniest Spider-Man movie that we have gotten so far. But there were times where I felt like we were watching Peter experiment with Iron Man tech rather than him growing as Spider-Man and solving problems with his own abilities. It never completely loses the Spider-Man identity, so it doesn't change the character completely, but I do think they could have dialed it back just a little bit. And then leaning into the action, overall, I think it's really solid. I will say that on this rewatch, I think I like the action less than I have with my previous watches. But overall, I think it's solid. The ferry sequence is obviously one of the highlights of the movie. It's a really exciting set piece, and I love that little nod to Spider-Man 2 here, where he's desperately trying to not only hold everything together with the ship, but hold his life together as well. So I think it's a really good contrast between his dual personalities of Spider-Man and Peter Parker here. And another sequence that I absolutely love is that neighborhood chase sequence with the van. It's one of the funnier scenes, and I'm not talking just with him with the van. I'm talking with him running through the rooftops, running through yards. All that was absolutely hilarious to me. And what makes it even funnier is the fact that he cannot web swing throughout the entire sequence. So to me, it's fresh, it's funny, and it was definitely a nice little change of pace for not only the movie, but the Spider-Man character itself, because we really haven't gotten much of that, if anything, in the previous iterations of Spider-Man. Like, there are no skyscrapers around. He's just running through the backyards, hopping fences, and sprinting across lawns while the criminals are just driving away. It's a creative reminder that Spider-Man actually depends on the environment a lot more than we realize, and it creates some really genuinely funny moments. But my biggest complaint with the action is definitely the climax. I didn't really have an issue with the climax until this rewatch. It's not necessarily the story that's the issue, it's the visuals for me. Spider-Man stopping a heist just isn't the most exciting finale compared to what has come before. And because so much of it takes place in the dark, it lacks the visual energy that the rest of the movie has. So I just think they could have come up with something a little bit more memorable to finish this movie off. And speaking of the finale, let's talk about the villain, Michael Keaton, who comes in and he is a fantastic, memorable choice as Vulture. Some of the dialogue is a little cheesy, especially at the very beginning of the movie, more so than towards the end. But those motivations are incredibly understandable, and it's really what keeps you locked in on Michael Keaton's performance throughout the entire movie. He's a guy who just got screwed over by the government and the Avengers cleaning up New York after the Battle of New York, and he decides that he's done playing everybody else's rules. And honestly, in today's economy, it's hard to not understand what he's going through and why he's so bitter. And then there's the car scene, which is absolutely phenomenal. You ask any fan of this movie, this is going to be one of those scenes that they will mention as the standout scenes of the movie. The slow realization that Peter is dating his daughter, the silence, Keaton figuring out his identity, the tension just kept building and building until he basically just threatens Peter with, "You better stay away or I'm going to kill you and your family." It's easily one of the best scenes in the entire MCU. I think if you were to put up a tier ranking list and you had this one particular scene, I think it would be near the top if I had to guess. I think Michael Keaton did an amazing job as Vulture in this movie. Top 10 MCU villain for sure, maybe even top 5. Now, one thing that a lot of people talk about with this movie is the overall vibe, and it is unmistakable John Hughes Breakfast Club style, coming of age feel. Marvel knew exactly what kind of movie they wanted to make, and they absolutely committed to it and nailed it. That style helps Homecoming stand out not only among the other Spider-Man movies, but superhero movies in general. I'm telling you, you go back and look at all these superhero movies that have come before it, and you put Homecoming right next to it. This one is completely different than all the ones that we've gotten before. We've never really gotten the teenager Breakfast Club, John Hughes style movie ever before. So it feels fresh. It's a new take on not only the character itself, but the superhero genre. It isn't trying to be like world ending with its spectacle. It's trying to be that coming of age story that just happens to feature Spider-Man. And with that being said, I do have a couple issues with the supporting characters. And this is really what holds the movie back from being a perfect Spider-Man movie for me. And unfortunately, I hate grouping movies together, like ranking one movie because of a future movie. But I think when you go back and look at the trilogy that we have gotten so far with Homecoming, Far From Home, No Way Home, it's hard not to rank this a little bit like lower based off the subsequent movies. I think there are some issues, and we can talk about those in some of the other reviews that I'm going to do. The characters are kind of an issue for me, like the side characters. Liz never really worked for me in this movie, and I will say that it really dawned on me with this watch through. I've seen this movie several times, but this is the first time that I've watched it as a content creator. So looking back at it, Liz just never works for me with this movie. She feels incredibly one note. And I think the movie would have been stronger if she wasn't Peter's main love interest at all. And then there's Zendaya's character, Michelle Jones, or MJ. I really don't like how Marvel handled both of these characters, but her character specifically. It felt like they wanted to create a brand new character, but they also didn't want to like upset Spider-Man fans. So they landed on Michelle Jones Watson. It was eye-rolling for me. Either make her Mary Jane or commit to making her a completely different character. I don't know why you would, because you have such a rich history with some of these characters in Spider-Man, but just commit to either one. Don't try to play the fence and try to appease both sides. The whole trying to have it both ways thing just doesn't really work for me. And don't worry, I'll explain a lot more with these two characters and how it misses the mark a little bit when I review Far From Home. And it's going to be more specifically towards MJ and her relationship with Peter. And one last thing before we close out this review, I've already mentioned it. I have been on record to say that I hate the MCU humor, especially when I watch other movies and I go, that is MCU humor if I ever saw it. I am not a fan of the comedy in these Marvel superhero movies. It really undercuts a lot of emotional moments with jokes, and that is something that I've criticized on just about every single Marvel movie that I have reviewed up to this point. This is one of the funniest MCU movies, like genuinely heartwarming and lighthearted and goofy, and it works because they're teenagers, but it is one of the funnier, genuine movies that we've got from Marvel. And I put it up there with Thor Ragnarok, and that was a completely different style of comedy where they really just threw everything at the wall and hope it sticks. This one, I felt like, for the most part, there are some moments that it definitely hits the MCU issue of, okay, we're going to break the tension with the comedic moment, and it shouldn't have been there. But for the most part, this movie nails the comedy that I want with a Spider-Man movie. But overall, guys, I really love Spider-Man Homecoming. It has so much heart. It's not trying to be the biggest or most action-packed Spider-Man movie. And that's exactly why I love it. More so than a lot of the other Spider-Man movies that we've gotten. This is one of the street level Spider-Man stories. It's able to incorporate those teenager-esque, my whole world is ending type of vibes. And I love that they were able to weave that through the story and through these characters and make a really great Spider-Man movie. But as a longtime Spider-Man fan, this is one of my favorite Spider-Man movies, period. And also one of my favorite MCU movies. But guys, let me know down in the comments below what you thought about Spider-Man Homecoming. What are your issues? What do you love about this movie? I know sometimes people kind of have some mixed feelings about this movie, so I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it. So drop a comment down below. And while you're there, hit that like, subscribe button. That's really going to help me grow this channel. And with that being said, I will catch you on the next review, which will be Spider-Man Far From Home. That one's going to be a doozy. I'm just going ahead and let you know ahead of time. But until then, laters.